Thursday, October 23, 2025. Welcome to the Noticias El Salvador SV podcast. In this space, for conversation and reflection, we explore together current topics in El Salvador and the world. You can provide your economic help via PayPal or through a Bitcoin QR code. The PayPal link you will find in the content description and the Bitcoin QR code on the cover of this episode. Send and put subject of your transfer. The reason for a transfer is something like collaboration, talk about the topic I like, for you to have a little coffee, contribution for your podcast, this for internal control purposes. Also remember, you can advertise through this space. If you're interested, in the description is the email address. Write to us. It will be very pleasant to hear from you. Look for us on your favorite platform, on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcast. We are on almost all of them as Noticias El Salvador's SV. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for sticking through that opening bit. It's necessary for us. Today, wow, we're really diving deep into a whirlwind of news, mostly focusing on what came out October 22nd, 2025. I mean, if you felt like the headlines are just flying past yesterday, you're definitely not alone.
Absolutely. It feels like a convergence point, doesn't it? We've got major geopolitical tensions ramping up, especially between the United States and Russia. Then there's this almost unbelievable story connecting pro sports like the NBA to organized crime.
Yeah, the mafia.
Yeah.
And all this is happening while the financial world, specifically crypto, is making these huge institutional leaps. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And that's our goal today, right?
Yeah.
To provide that critical context. We're not just reading headlines. We want to explore why these things are happening now, how they connect, finance, security, global politics. It's all intertwined.
Okay, let's start with that story that honestly sounds like it's ripped from a movie script. This massive federal operation in the U.S. targeting the NBA and its links to organized crime. The core charge, I think the source put it like this: they arrest a coach and a player from the NBA for an illegal betting network linked to the Italian mafia, Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, and this isn't just, some small-time betting ring. This looks systemic. The names involved are big. We're talking about Chauncey Billups, coach for the Portland Trail Blazers.
A huge name in basketball history.
Exactly. And Terry Rozier, currently playing for the Miami Heat. Both arrested, both suspended immediately. And this is part of a much larger federal sweep. Over 30 people charged so far.
But the really staggering part, for me at least, is the explicit connection to La Cosa Nostra. I mean, the sources are naming names: the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families. These are like the pillars of the Italian-American mafia historically.
That's what elevates this, It suggests a deep infrastructure behind the scheme. These families allegedly provided the essentials, the money, the capital to float these huge illegal bets.
Right.
Probably some level of protection, influence, maybe. And critically, the complex machinery for laundering the profits. We're talking potentially billions here.
So the NBA figures like Billups and Rozier, they were the insiders, providing the access or the information needed.
That seems to be the allegation. Using privileged league information, maybe about injuries, player availability, team strategies to manipulate betting outcomes, basically compromising the integrity of the game itself for profit.
And the methods weren't just simple bets. It was sophisticated fraud.
Oh, yeah. Two main angles, it seems. On the sports side, like you said, manipulating outcomes, faking injuries, maybe ensuring a player sits out early, influencing plays to hit a certain point spread, real inside corruption.
Okay, that's bad enough. But then there's the poker ring.
Right, and this is where it gets almost James Bond-like. They weren't just dealing from the bottom of the deck. They were using some serious tech. Trick shuffling machines that could stack the deck, special lenses, maybe contacts to read tiny marks on cards.
Wait, I read something about x-rays. Seriously.
Apparently, yes. Using x-ray technology somehow to see face-down cards. It's incredible. It's like old-school mob tactics meeting, modern high-tech cheating.
It's wild. So the charges reflect that. Mixed wire fraud, money laundering, illegal gambling, even extortion. The FBI called the whole thing astonishing.
And a major blow against organized crime in sports, maybe one of the biggest in decades. So yeah, a huge story domestically in the United States.
Okay, let's shift gears dramatically now from that internal U.S. crime story to the global stage. Because October 22nd was also a day of really sharp escalation between the United States and Russia.
Yeah, the mood definitely shifted. The big trigger seems to have been the cancellation of that planned summit between President Donald J. Trump and, the Russians in Budapest. That was seen by some as a potential chance to de-escalate.
And now that door seems firmly shut.
And Moscow's reaction was, frankly, extreme. We saw Dmitry Medvedev, a key Russian official, come out and basically declare the United States our enemy. He claimed Trump has now fully embarked on a war against Russia. That's incredibly strong language.
It really throws out any pretense of trying to find common ground, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this wasn't just words. We saw actions, too. New sanctions from the U.S.
Right. Targeting Russia's biggest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. That hits them where it hurts, their energy revenue. And at the same time, the European Union rolled out its 19th package of sanctions.
19th. That number alone tells a story about how long this economic conflict has been going on.
It does. And this latest EU package has some teeth. For the first time, it's directly targeting Russia's gas sector. And crucially, it's going after what they call the shadow fleet.
Can you explain that? What's the shadow fleet?
So it's basically this collection of older, often uninsured tankers that Russia uses to transport its oil and gas outside the official channels, trying to get around Western sanctions and price caps. By targeting this fleet, the EU is trying to choke off that illicit revenue stream that funds, well, their war effort, among other things.
Okay, so that sounds potentially quite damaging. But President Putin's public reaction was dismissive. He said it wouldn't significantly affect Russia's economy.
Well, that's the expected public stance, isn't it? Projecting resilience. But hitting their export infrastructure, especially the hidden parts like the shadow fleet, has to create pressure eventually. The more maybe serious response from Putin came regarding weapons for Ukraine.
Right, the Tomahawk missiles discussion.
Exactly. He framed any talk of supplying Tomahawks to Kyiv as a deliberate escalation by the West. And he issued a very stark warning. Any Tomahawk strikes on Russian territory would trigger a response that is, and I'm quoting here, serious, if not frankly overwhelming.
Overwhelming. That's chilling language in this context.
It absolutely is. It raises the stakes considerably.
And the tension wasn't just with Russia. We also saw some heated exchanges involving the United States and Venezuela.
Yeah, that flared up too. Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela made this pretty bold claim about possessing over 5,000 Russian Igla-S anti-aircraft missiles.
Igla-S, those the shoulder-fired ones, right? Man-portable air defense systems.
That's right. Very capable systems. Maduro basically boasted that this arsenal makes Venezuela inexpugnable, untouchable, warning anyone against interfering.
Now, is that number 5,000? Credible? Mm-hmm. Or is it more about sending a message?
It's likely a bit of both. Russia is a known supplier, but 5,000 is a huge number. It's probably inflated for rhetorical effect, aimed squarely at Washington as a deterrent, especially given the rhetoric coming from Washington.
Yeah, President Trump took a very hard line on drug trafficking. The quote was pretty aggressive. "We don't need a declaration of war. We will simply kill the people who bring drugs to our territory."
That's extremely blunt language, suggesting potentially extrajudicial actions. He also directly linked Venezuela to sending prisoners to the U.S., framing it as a national security threat.
Which predictably drew a sharp response.
Oh, immediately. Maria Zakharova, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, fired back. She sarcastically suggested the U.S. should conduct a special operation in Manhattan to deal with its own drug problem, saying it's simply everywhere there.
So using America's internal issues as a diplomatic counterpunch.
Exactly. It's part of that global information war, deflecting criticism by highlighting the adversary's own problems.
Okay, one more piece on the international front before we move on. Trade talks. There's a crucial meeting happening, basically today, October 23rd.
Right. Between U.S. official Besson and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, this is high stakes. They need to talk about tariffs, the ongoing trade disputes. The sources suggest both sides really want to avoid making the trade war worse.
Especially with the U.S.-Russia situation being so unstable, right? A stable U.S.-China economic relationship becomes even more vital.
Precisely. It's about managing global economic stability.
Okay, let's quickly touch on three other international snapshots from the 22nd that caught my eye. First, this somber exchange related to the Ukraine conflict.
Yeah, Russia returned the remains of 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers. In exchange, they received the remains of 31 Russian soldiers. It's just a grim reminder of the human cost.
And the report mentioned the total for 2025 so far.
It did. Over 13,300 Ukrainian bodies and nearly 350 Russian bodies recovered through these exchanges just this year. The scale is staggering.
Truly tragic. Second snapshot. Major protests in Hungary.
Yes, in Budapest. Around 200,000 people marching, the reports say. Their banner was, "We will not die for Ukraine." This was a protest against EU military plans, seemingly fueled by Prime Minister Orban's anti-war stance.
There's a significant internal dissent within the EU structure about the approach to the war.
Definitely shows deep divisions on that front. And finally, this interesting development bridging politics and crypto President Trump pardoning Changpeng Zhao.
CZ, the former CEO of Binance.
That's the one, the Canadian billionaire. He'd already pleaded guilty to money laundering charges, served a 4-month sentence relatively recently. Now he gets a full presidential pardon.
What does that signal, do you think?
Well, it's complex, could be political maneuvering, could be a nod to the growing influence of the crypto industry. Either way, pardoning such a major figure in crypto sends ripples through both the political and financial worlds.
Okay, a lot happening on the world stage. Let's bring it closer to home now and look at El Salvador. The news here seems much more positive, particularly around security.
It really does. The standout number is 243 days without homicide so far in 2025. I mean, just think about that. And 16 of those zero homicide days were just in October.
It's a continuation of this trend we've been seeing. For anyone listening who doesn't know the history, El Salvador used to have one of the highest homicide rates in the world. So this is, well, transformative is the word often used.
And that word transformation seems fitting. It's not just anecdotal. This security improvement is clearly having an economic impact. We saw CEPAL, that's the Economic Commission for Latin America, and the Caribbean revise its growth forecast upwards for El Salvador.
What's the new forecast?
They're now projecting 2.8% growth for 2025. That's a healthy number. And the upgrade signals increased confidence from international bodies.
Why the upgrade now? Is it purely the security dividend?
Largely, yes. Stability is key for investment. When you remove the massive risk associated with widespread violence, businesses feel more confident, investors are more willing to commit capital, trade flows more easily. It creates a positive cycle.
And we see some evidence in the trade numbers, too.
Yep. Salvadoran exports are up 5.7% through September this year. That's solid growth, suggesting businesses are operating more smoothly and finding markets.
It lines up with what the Chinese ambassador Zhang Yanhou said in a recent interview. He described witnessing a historical transformation in El Salvador. Getting that kind of acknowledgement from a major power like China is significant.
It absolutely is. It signals that El Salvador is increasingly seen on the world stage as a stable, reliable place to engage with, economically and diplomatically.
Okay, moving beyond the big economic picture, there were updates on public health and other local issues. Dengue fever seems to be on the radar.
Yes. The Ministry of Health reported 178 confirmed cases between September and October, which sounds like a lot, but the report also noted a slight decrease in the weekly case numbers during early October.
So, the situation is being managed.
It suggests the public health measures, fumigation, awareness campaigns are having some effect. It needs continued monitoring, of course, especially with seasonal risks, but the trend seems contained for now.
There was also some seismic activity reported.
Yeah, a localized earthquake swarm near the city of San Lorenzo. The report mentions 63 tremors over about 5 days. No word on major damage, thankfully, but that level of activity always warrants close attention.
Definitely. And one last point on the domestic front, this initiative around family-friendly workplaces.
Right. The private sector is showing interest in adopting this family-friendly seal. It usually means companies are implementing policies that help employees balance work and family life, things like flexible hours, maybe better parental leaves, childcare support.
And why is that significant now?
It reflects a maturing economy and workforce. Businesses are realizing that to attract and keep good employees, the people driving that 2.8% growth, they need to offer better working conditions and support work-life balance. It's a sign of progress beyond just the security numbers.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground from global flashpoints and organized crime right down to local economic indicators and public health in El Salvador. It's a lot to process.
It really is. Synthesizing this level of detail, connecting the dots between, say, a mafia operation in the U.S. and economic growth forecasts in Central America takes considerable effort behind the scenes.
Absolutely. We're digging into sources, translating where needed, providing that background, like explaining the shadow fleet or putting the homicide stats in context. Our aim is always to make these complex issues understandable and relevant for you.
And honestly, we can only sustain this level of in-depth analysis and production quality with the backing of our listeners. Your support is what makes these deep dives possible.
So this is our regular reminder. If you value this kind of detailed, expert-led breakdown of the news, please consider supporting the show. It genuinely helps us keep the lights on and maintain the quality you expect.
There are a couple of easy ways to do that. You can use PayPal. You'll find a direct link right there in the description of this episode. Quick and simple.
Or embracing the digital world we often discuss, you can use the Bitcoin QR code. That's displayed prominently on the cover art for this episode. When you make a contribution, if you could add a little note in the subject line, something like collaboration or podcast contribution or even coffee fund, that really helps us with our internal tracking.
And don't forget, this is also a great platform for businesses. If you have a product or service you think our audience would be interested in, advertising with us is an option. Reach out via the email address, also in the description. We'd love to hear from you.
Your support, truly, in whatever form it takes, allows us to continue doing this, bringing you detailed analysis week after week. Okay, let's pivot now to the world of crypto.
Right. And while we were just talking about, old school crime with the NBA, the crypto world continues its march towards institutional integration. The big news here involves a major traditional asset manager stepping into the ring.
T. Rowe Price. That's a huge name in finance.
Exactly. They filed an S-1 form with the SEC. That's the official registration step for their first actively managed crypto ETF. It's called the T. Rowe Price Active Crypto ETF. This is a landmark move.
Okay, an ETF is an exchange-traded fund. Lets people buy crypto exposure through traditional stock markets. But what's so significant about this specific ETF filing?
Two things, mainly. First, it's actively managed, meaning T. Rowe Price won't just track an index. Their managers will actively pick and choose crypto assets, trying to beat the market. Second, look at what they plan to hold.
Okay.
It's not just Bitcoin and Ether. The filing mentions plans to invest in a whole basket. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, XRP, Cardano, and here's the kicker. Dogecoin and Shiba Inu.
Wait, Dogecoin and Shiba Inu in an ETF from T. Rowe Price? Seriously?
Seriously. Including major meme coins in a formal SEC filing from an institutional giant like T. Rowe Price?
Yeah.
That signals a massive shift. They're basically acknowledging the reality of the market, including its speculative, high volatility corners, and packaging it for their clients.
Wow, that really feels like a threshold being crossed.
It does. And it fits into a broader trend of consolidation we're seeing. For instance, the crypto prime broker, FalconX, just agreed to acquire 21 shares, which is a big player in digital asset ETFs.
Why that acquisition?
The stated goal is explicitly to speed up the development of more ETFs and derivatives products tailored for institutional clients. They're building the financial plumbing needed for big banks and funds to get more involved in crypto.
Okay, so institutions are definitely moving in. What about making crypto easier for, regular people to use?
Yeah.
There was some news from Coinbase on that front, right, with AI?
Yes. This could be huge for accessibility. Coinbase unveiled something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, specifically Payments MCP.
Model Context Protocol. What does that actually do?
Think of it as a translator. It allows AI agents like Anthropic's Claude or Google's Gemini, these big, large language models, to actually interact with crypto wallets and make transactions on the blockchain using natural language.
Yeah.
So instead of you needing to copy wallet addresses, figure out gas fees, navigate complex interfaces, you could potentially just tell your AI assistant, hey, send $50 worth of USDC to my landlord's wallet for utilities.
And the AI would handle the actual on-chain transaction.
That's the promise. It connects the conversational ease of AI with the back-end complexity of crypto transactions, particularly for things like stablecoin payments. It could dramatically lower the barrier to entry for using DeFi and crypto day-to-day.
That sounds genuinely game-changing for adoption if it works smoothly.
It could be. It addresses one of the biggest friction points in Web3 right now.
Okay, let's look at another area where crypto is making inroads. Sports and prediction markets.
Yep.
And this provides a fascinating contrast to the NBA betting scandal we started with.
It really does. While the NBA is dealing with illegal, mafia-linked betting, the National Hockey League, the NHL, is actively embracing regulated, crypto-based prediction markets.
What do they do?
The NHL signed multi-year licensing deals with two big names in the space, Kalshi and Polymarket.
Okay, so prediction markets let people bet on the outcome of real-world events, right? Not just sports.
Exactly. And what's groundbreaking here is that this is the first time a major U.S. pro sports league has officially licensed its trademarks to these kinds of crypto-focused platforms. They're giving them the official stamp of approval.
That's a huge signal of legitimacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially compared to the, underground nature of the NBA operation.
Precisely. It shows a league proactively engaging with new, transparent, potentially regulated technology instead of being exploited by old, opaque criminal methods. It acknowledges the massive growth and user interest in these platforms.
It validates the tech in a way while highlighting the risks of the unregulated side. The contrast is really stark: mafia using X-rays versus a league licensing blockchain platforms.
Couldn't put it better myself.
Okay, finally in the crypto space, let's talk about the nuts and bolts: security and operational stability. We saw both a major failure and a significant comeback story. Let's start with the positive, WazirX.
Right. WazirX, the Indian crypto exchange, they announced they're finally resuming trading this Friday. This comes after a really long 16-month suspension.
Why were they suspended for so long?
They suffered a massive hack back in July 2024. Something like $230 million was stolen. It was devastating. But they went through a formal restructuring process approved by the Singapore High Court and got overwhelming support from their creditors.
So it's a story of recovery. It shows that even after a catastrophic failure, there can be a path back through institutional processes.
Exactly. It offers some hope for resilience in the industry, although the losses were still immense for users initially.
But then, on the flip side, we have the story of Booney.
Yeah, the decentralized exchange, Bernie. They announced they're shutting down permanently.
Why? What happened there?
They were hit by an $8.4 million exploit, specifically a flash loan exploit. And they basically decided the costs of trying to relaunch, conduct audits, and regain trust were just too high. Insurmountable, they said.
Okay, flash loan exploit. Can you break that down? How does a loan bankrupt an exchange?
It's a very specific DeFi attack. Flash loans are uncollateralized loans, but they must be repaid within the same transaction block on the blockchain, which takes only seconds.
Okay.
So an attacker borrows a huge amount of crypto, uses it instantly within that same block to manipulate prices on the targeted exchange, like Bernie. Maybe drives the price of an asset way down artificially, buys it up cheap, then sells it elsewhere or manipulates another pair, makes a massive profit, and repays the original loan, all in that single block.
All in a few seconds.
Yep. The net result is the attacker walks away with millions and the exchange's liquidity pools are drained, leaving it insolvent. It highlights how vulnerable some DeFi protocols can be to these incredibly fast, sophisticated attacks.
And the stolen funds from Booney.
They were quickly moved across blockchains and funneled into Tornado Cash, the mixing service, making them very hard to trace or recover. Users with any remaining funds on Booney can still withdraw, but the platform itself is gone.
It's a harsh reminder that even with all this innovation, security risks are ever present, which probably explains why hardware wallet companies are still innovating.
Absolutely. You mentioned Ledger and Trezor releasing new 2025 models. That focus on self-custody, keeping control of your own private keys on a physical device, remains the bedrock of personal security in crypto. No matter how fancy the ETFs or AI integrations get, if you lose your keys, you lose everything.
Right. So whether it's old school criminals or cutting edge hackers, security is the constant challenge.
Always.
Wow, what a tour.
Right.
We've gone from the depths of organized crime using surprisingly analog tech in the NBA.
Right, like X-rays for poker.
To the brink of potential conflict between major world powers like the US and Russia,
right,
driven by sanctions and military threats.
Then seeing El Salvador demonstrating real transformation based on security gains.
And finally landing in the hyperspeed world of crypto, where huge institutions are embracing meme coins, while decentralized platforms can be bankrupted in seconds by flash loans.
The connecting thread, maybe, is that sophistication and security are always in this arms race. Whether it's the Bonanno family trying to cheat at cards or an anonymous coder launching a flash loan attack, the stakes are incredibly high, and the methods keep evolving.
And that brings us back to the need for vigilance, doesn't it? For you, the listener, staying informed is crucial, but so is understanding the underlying risks and protecting yourself, whether that's being aware of geopolitical tensions or, using a new hardware wallet for your crypto.
That's the core of what we try to do here, provide that detailed context, analyze the sources, and help you navigate these complex, interconnected issues.
And we want to keep doing that. So one final important reminder, this deep dive format, the research, the analysis, it all depends on listener support. If you find this valuable, please consider contributing.
The PayPal link is right there in the description, easy to find. Or use the Bitcoin QR code on the episode cover. And please add that little note, collaboration, podcast support, whatever works, it helps us enormously.
And for businesses, don't forget the advertising opportunity. Reach out via the email in the description if you want to connect with our audience.
Your support truly makes this possible and allows us to maintain the quality and consistency you relied on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this comprehensive deep dive into the events surrounding October 22nd and 23rd, 2025. We'll be back soon to unpack the next wave of crucial developments.
Farewell for now.